I'm here with a human design video. I wanted to talk a little bit about strategy and authority and how that connects up with the rest of the body graph. If you've been on this channel for a while and you're not familiar with human design, realize that I'm not starting with just the basics and what is human design and what is each part of it, but I am going to try to make these videos beginner friendly and explain what I'm talking about to some extent as I go. I'll also be making more videos, and I'll be sure to include them in a playlist and cards in the description, etc. as I create more. And so do take a look for that. Leave questions and comments down below. Let me know what's confusing, what you need more of as well, to orient yourself to the system if you're interested in it. If you are new here and maybe you're coming because you were interested in human design, just to orient you a little bit to who I am. Hi, my name is Avery, and I help justice-aligned, neurodivergent, and nerdy humans to cultivate ease and self-trust for growing into our emerging future. Human design is one of the tools I really like to do this. Today we're going to be talking about strategy and authority, which is an excellent tool for cultivating self-trust. And particularly, I have a neuro-emergent lens on human design. My main offering right now, as I'm recording this, is a neuro-emergent human design reading, and you can see the links for that below. But what that basically means is that I work with everybody, whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical, but I'm interested in the potential of our neurotype, how our brains work, process information, how we communicate, etc. And I find that human design is a really interesting system for getting to know our neurotype and working with it naturally, rather than being in the kind of capitalist, colonialist, hustle culture conditioning that we're all subject to. So today, I specifically wanted to talk to you a little bit about strategy and authority and how it connects up to the rest of the body graph, because I think, especially when you're starting out with human design, it can be kind of weird because there's this concept of strategy and authority that when you learn about it, everyone makes it very clear that that's the go-to thing, that that's the most important thing to practice, that you need to even experiment with and practice your strategy and authority for a year or 2 years before you even are able to connect to the other parts of the system often, that everything leads back to strategy and authority. And I know that when I first encountered human design and I learned about my strategy and authority, which I'm a generator, so my strategy is wait to respond, and I am a sacral authority. So when I do that responding, I do so from my sacral center. I learned about that. I read as much as I could about it, and I didn't totally connect to it. And I found it a little frustrating. I was like, okay, I want to do this, but I need more information. I want to understand more. I'm autistic. I was like, I need everything I can research on this subject. And as I went more into it and more into the body graph, what I realized is that it is a very complex system. You can see here an example. I put my own body graph on the screen as a teaching tool, so you can't see my face, but you can see my inner workings and everything else about me, because this is my body graph. When I first, learned about this, I was like, oh, there's all these pieces. I love it. There's a system. There's lots of things. And that is totally true. And there's a lot you can go in on if it's something that interests you and that your own strategy and authority calls to, as mine did. You don't have to, one, so you can just start from strategy and authority and you can ignore everything else. And in fact, totally encourage you, if strategy and authority is something that you are finding accessible, that you're interested in, if you want to work with me or another human design reader and really go in deep on what does it mean to practice my strategy and authority, you want to understand your energy type more, whether you're a generator, manifester, projector, reflector. If you, are finding that to be just a simple practice that is working for you, then great. You could literally go your whole life only using strategy and authority, only understanding that piece, and you would live out all of your design. It's just how the system works. You don't have to understand it to live it. And you probably, if you're at this video, you might be wondering, but there's all these other pieces and I want to understand those and how they relate to strategy and authority. And so that's what we're going to be talking about here. The big picture of it, honestly, is that everything comes back to your strategy and authority. The rest of your body graph absolutely flavors it. It tells you more about how it plays out. Everyone's unique. It's not sort of like, not each of us who have the same strategy and authority don't operate the same way. So if you're familiar, for example, I'm also an astrologer. If you're familiar with astrology, not everyone with the same sun sign manifests that sun sign in the same way. Not everybody who's a sacral generator manifests being a sacral generator the same way. There's lots of different flavors to it. But the thing that's unique about strategy and authority, and a little different from, say, a sun sign, is that it kind of guides you back to the rest of your graph all the time. So it's a shortcut. Using your strategy and authority, it's a more easeful, sort of natural way to get to all of this. You don't have to understand all of this to get to it. When you practice strategy and authority, what it does is that it's freeing up your mind. You don't need to understand. You also don't need to use your logic brain, your mental capacity to make decisions. You free it up for other things. So that's the big picture of what we're talking about here. But I do want to talk about specific pieces of the body graph and how strategy and authority can naturally bring you back to those. So these are not the only things I could do, but I picked 4 that I thought were particularly useful to explain, especially if you're learning about human design, if you're new to it, or maybe you've been doing it for a while. It took me a couple years to really grok this, and you're just curious about how everything fits together. So the first point I would make is that strategy and authority guide us to the best opportunities to use our definition so that we don't overuse that consistent, reliable energy that makes up our definition. The parts of our chart that are defined or colored in, that are consistent and reliable, we always have access to them. But we can't be using them for everything. We have a limited amount of energy. So strategy and authority helps us not to overuse our energy, not to use that consistent, reliable energy for the wrong thing or the wrong opportunities, or to connect with the wrong people, the people who aren't ready for us, the people who aren't going to resonate with our uniqueness. We ideally want to feel really affirmed in our uniqueness, and we want to be able to operate from our definition in environments where it's going to be accepted and affirmed and useful and lead to things. Human design is all about collective change and mutation in the way humanity progresses, right? So we want to find our role in the collective. What is our niche? How do we push forward? How can we contribute? A lot of people come to human design interested in what is my life purpose? What is my destiny? We'll talk a little more about that in one of the later points. But here, I'll just say that one thing I really like about strategy and authority is the way it helps us to not be using the parts of us that we have this reliable access to for things where it's not going to have an impact. I talked in another video, and I'll try to remember to leave a link above, but it'll also just be in the human design playlist. I talked about my 2343 channel, and this channel is known colloquially as the channel of From Genius to Freak. So it's a very provocative name. But it's a channel that's a lot about breakthroughs and spontaneous insight and communicating, in the moment, just something pops out of your mouth, and it might be something genius. It might be perceived as something genius, or you might be perceived as a freak or the weirdo. As somebody who is autistic, I very much yeah, I get this. This is a really common channel, so you might have it in your own body graph. And what that is all about is that when I use my strategy and authority, it's gonna kind of guide me to. It could be the same insight, right? But if it's at the wrong time, if it's not hitting the right audience, that's where it's going to not have the impact. So my strategy and authority naturally leads me to that. If I, because I am a generator, if I wait for opportunities to respond and then come out with the thing, if somebody asks a question and I'm like, wow, something popped out of my mouth. I notice this in client sessions that often I'll be vibing with a client, I'll be resonating with somebody, and then I will channel things directly, in my worldview, directly from spirit. Things will just come out of my mouth and they'll be like, holy shit, the way you said that, I need to write that down. This happens to me a lot with clients where I don't realize the thing coming out of my mouth is all that interesting. And somebody will be like, wait, pause, say that sentence again. I'll be like, okay, here's the sentence. And occasionally somebody will actually ask me to like elaborate, and I'll go, I have no idea. Like I have no idea why that came out of me at this moment. So it's very 2343. And that's a really affirming, empowering experience. And the more I have those experiences, the more I feel confident in that ability and I feel good about it, right? Whereas, let's say I'm trying to like push it and I'm not responding, I'm initiating, I'm just like, hey, I want to make a video about something because I feel like it, but I'm not really responding to anything. Maybe I'm, I feel like I need to. Well, now I might hit the other side of this 2343 where people kind of look at me like, huh? Right? And now I've used that energy for something that wasn't serving anybody or wasn't connecting to anybody. And so the more I use my strategy and authority, the more I wait to respond and then use my sacral to, am I getting that yes, that that joyful feeling, then that's awesome. Of course, you may not be a generator, you may not have sacral authority, so your strategy and authority is personal to you. I may do a video if you're interested, comment below, but strategy and authority is a very common topic, so you can definitely find, until I do that, other people talking about it. It's going to be specific to you, and you can work with a reader to learn more, but my examples are all for myself. But let's say if you're a projector, then this would be getting the proper invitation, getting the invitation that is right for you. If you're a manifester, right, then you actually are meant to initiate. You are meant to just like throw it out there. So everybody's going to be different. So you got to tune into your own strategy and authority. But number 2 kind of relates to this. So we can carry on for some of the same examples. The second thing that connects it for me is that strategy and authority help us to filter out what is actually meant for us as things pass, as opportunities pass through our open centers, rather than operating from a mental pressure to grab what might be the wrong thing, to act on something that's actually for someone else, or to act on something in the wrong way. So it helps us to use the conditioning that naturally occurs through these open or white, undefined centers, to use that energy passing through them as a learning experience where we're gathering wisdom from what we learn, from what passes through, and not as a decision maker that pulls us off our path. So what the hell am I talking about? Let me explain this. So our open centers are like the classrooms of our design. They're where things pass through and we learn from others. It gives us opportunities to respond to if you're a generator, for example. It's where the invitations pass through if you're a projector, etc. And these open centers are really amazing and really powerful, and like we can learn a lot from them, and we actually get really wise to the nature of humanity and to the nature of that center. We have this superpower in our open centers because we don't have a consistent, reliable way of operating through them. We're going to be able to see the range better than other people. We're going to be able to see like all the possibility better than people who have the same kind of energy flowing through it all the time. And that's great. The challenge is that as things are flowing through these open centers, we typically are going to amplify that energy. We're going to feel pressure to act from that energy. And it's where our mind, our logical brain, grabs onto pressure and gets in with those shoulds or ought tos, right? So I mentioned, for example, like I might be feeling like I need to make a video, right? I should be making a video. And I'm not feeling much inspiration at this moment. And because I have this open head center, I start to feel pressure through that. And I start to, this is where one of the places my mind might speak to me and say, I need to find something inspiring. I just need to figure it out. I just need to, just grab something. I'll watch a video, and whatever the video is, I'm going to respond to it, right? That's not operating from my strategy and authority. Or another example of an open center might be, in my particular design here, might be if I'm feeling pressure from the root, that might look more like I got to hurry up and do something with this. So maybe I do get inspiration, but it doesn't. I'm not having anything to respond to yet. I'm not really feeling like a need to do anything with it, but my root says like I need to figure out what this is for. I need to dispense with it, so I'm going to make a video, right? And that video is probably going to flop. Whereas if I wait and I use my strategy and authority, like I'm really figuring out what's for me. What I like a lot about this is that it really resonates with my general view on the world, that it's one of the things that's really challenging is to figure out what is ours to hold and what isn't. So when we feel like fear or pressure or anxiety, you know, am I being called to take an action or not? Do I need to do anything with this? You know, if you're on social media, right, and you see something and you're like, well, that's bullshit, right? Do I need to respond to it? As I started practicing my sacral authority, what I realized is I was getting a lot of opportunities to respond. I would comment to every video I watched on YouTube with like a long ass comment, right? And because I just was like, that was my default. A lot of times we operate from default when we're operating from what human design calls the not self. When we're not using our strategy and authority, we can kind of fall into these patterns of default. And one of my patterns of default was that I would just kind of like do everything that was there. And I think part of that actually was this open root, right? The pressure of like stress of feeling like, oh, I got to do something with this. I gotta hurry up and do something. And so I would respond to all these videos. And then I was like, why am I doing this? Like half the time, nobody notices my comment. Nobody cares. And then I realized that my sacral, even though these were opportunities to respond, my sacral was not giving me a yes, right? Very often. And now when my sacral does give me a yes, when I feel this like, yeah, like I want to respond, right? Then I'll respond. And often those times, it's like, oh, that person does like comment back, or, you know, we get into a conversation, or it sparks something in me, or writing about it, there's a reason for that, right? So strategy and authority naturally don't need to use logic to figure it out. You don't have to ask, like, what is the inspiration that I'm supposed to grab onto? Strategy and authority will just naturally grab the quote-unquote right one and filter it down. And what this does is it means that our definition, as we just talked about, it's not going to be overtaxed. So we're both we have a limited amount of energy. So we want to spend that energy on the things that are uniquely made for us. We want to find our unique contribution, our role. I have a background in social justice and activism, and like we talk about this a lot. Like, not everybody is the person who is screaming at the protest. Some people are the ones bringing snacks to the protest. Some people need to be the medical care at the protest. Some people, aren't at the protest, but are doing other kinds of work, right? Everybody's got their unique role, but if we try to do everything, then we end up doing a lot that like we're not actually well suited to. And the whole point of human design is we got all different body graphs represented, so there's going to be something for everything. And if there's not, and this is the thing I love to say to people, if there's nobody there whose strategy and authority called them to do the thing, then maybe the thing didn't need to be done. So for example, with root pressure, that can be very much like, I need to hurry up and get things done, and I'll take this and I'll dispense with it. Nobody's doing this, so I should do it, right? Somebody's got to do it. Do they? Here's my little anti-capitalist lens, right? Like, does anyone need to be exploiting others for profit? Maybe not. Maybe if we all were listening to our strategy and authority, maybe no one would be called to exploit others for profit, and then it wouldn't happen. There's my little political angle. But it's worth considering, right, that not everything needs to be done. And sometimes letting it go might mean that it's someone else's to grab. So if you're grabbing the thing in your open center that's not for you, it means the person who it was for doesn't get to interact with it. But it also might mean that nobody's supposed to interact with it. And that actually noticing and having awareness of it, think about how with COVID, where a lot of people just were like, I'm sorry, I just can't, I'm not going to do this job. And then it's like, people have to confront the fact that, like, maybe there's a reason. Like, maybe if we're all exploiting our labor, that, like, no one wants to be exploited. So, like, I guess I got to treat my labor better. That kind of thing can happen. Of course, it's not a perfectionist thing, right? Like, sometimes there's stuff in life we have to do, and stuff can be hard. But I think, like, experimenting with this and finding as many ways as possible to use strategy and authority Because often the mind will speak to us through that lens of like, I've got to do it. And so asking yourself, like, do I have to do it? Like really get honest with yourself. And if it's yes, then it's yes. But like, it's really an opportunity to experiment. And it protects and preserves your energy. So another great example, I love to talk about generators and how the sacral can get misunderstood. You know, we have a consistent generative energy. We have the energy to quote unquote work hard, but we don't have the energy to work hard on everything. And something I see with generators that often happens is that if we pull in, so this is the interaction between the defined and undefined, right? If we pull in through this open root, as an example, if you have an open root defined sacral, if we pull in things that aren't really for us, if we're feeling stress, and so we're like, I'm going to grab it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to work on it. Our sacral is this powerhouse that will grab it and it will finish it, whether or not it mattered. And now my sacral's tied up in something that it wasn't really for, and it doesn't have life force and energy to do the creative stuff that's actually really for me and that could really have a huge impact, right? I don't get to like connect to my identity center here and like, you know, use what's really like uniquely mine. I don't get to leverage that because I'm being burnt out, and burnout is often a thing that happens here when we're taking things through our open centers and we're pushing. We may overtax this and then not have as much energy available to us, or not have it for the things that we really want. I see this a lot as well with people who have a defined will center, is that if you have a defined will, it is correct for you to make commitments, and you can make commitments and you can use willpower. But again, you're not meant to use willpower on everything. You're not meant to commit to everything. And these folks can overcommit, as another example. So that, I think, is really juicy. That interaction between open and defined is when we're using our strategy and authority, it's pulling the things that are actually meant for us into our design, into our definition, I should say, allowing our definition to work with those things, finding the right people, finding the right timing as well. Naturally, strategy and authority is going to like be the right timing. It might be that something isn't right now, but it is right in a year. And so there's a lot less like quote unquote wasted energy. There's a lot less, and I don't think anything's a waste. I think everything's a lesson, but still, it's a lot more easeful. It's a lot more, and you can build self-trust through this because you get examples of things working, and then you can really like have confidence in your definition and how valuable it is and important to the collective when you see examples of it working really well. And then it frees up your open centers to be learning labs, and you can see how other people's energy is interacting. You can see how, I have an open spleen, for example. Folks who are in a healing profession with an open spleen, it's like, once I understand that the body-based messages I get, often fear-based messages I get, aren't mine. They're not always for me. They're not always about my body's health or my wellness, but they're about someone else's. Suddenly I have this beautiful barometer, this compass to help other people, because I become wise to the energy that's flowing through from the outside. I have an open will, and I do all this work around, anti-capitalism and anti-hustle culture and all that. And I think it's because I have this open will, and I can, experience other people's like willpower and other people's will energy. But when I was taking that in as pressure and using my mind to say, I got to just power through it. I got to push. I got to do it. I got to figure it out. It doesn't matter that I have ADHD. I need to just like figure it out, Then it's just unhealthy. It's harming me. So, all right. So number 3, the last 2 will be a little shorter, but number 3 is that strategy and authority naturally guides us to our incarnation cross. So a lot of people learn about the incarnation cross if they're looking for like, what in human design shows me my life purpose. They might come to, the incarnation cross is my destiny. The incarnation cross is formed from the sun and earth on both sides of these 4 gates. So 5, 35, 63, 64. And that, for me, it's the right angle cross of consciousness. So you'll see this at the top of your body graph. There'll be a name. And people will look this up and they'll be like, oh, this is the thing. However, I actually don't do a lot of work with the incarnation crosses. And the reason is practicing strategy and authority leads you to that destiny. seeking and searching for it does not. So just like the definition, we're not trying to like seek and search and use our mind to find the opportunities that play into our definition. Similarly, we can't use the mind to try to find this incarnation cross. We can't be like, okay, I'm a right angle across the consciousness. I'm going to look up what that means, and I'm going to try to find opportunities that go with that. Don't do that. Don't do that, because there's no reason to. And also, it's that seeking, searching energy is really like logical mind. It's not strategy and authority. When you live into your strategy and authority, you'll naturally notice that you're playing out your incarnation cross. So it can be useful, I guess, in the sense that like it's a little signpost. It's like an affirmation, and you know that you have that cross. And so when you notice yourself really living that out, you're like, wow, this is awesome. Like I'm affirmed in my practice. But I think especially early on, that can actually be frustrating, or can be challenging, or can be, whatever your not self theme is. So like frustrating, angry, any of those can really come up. And you can push and strive when really all you need to do is practice strategy and authority. So just trust that your incarnation cross plays out, and it's really a lifetime energy. So it cultivates over a lifetime. So if you're 22, you don't need to like push towards your incarnation cross. It will unfold. And finally, the fourth thing I want to note is that practicing your strategy and authority helps you to access your design, or the unconscious side of the body graph. So your body graph is made up of your personality, your design, and your personality, and that's all the black. Depending on where you pull your body graph from, and you can Google, human design body graph, you can find one. The colors may be slightly different, but there should be a key to what the colors are, but usually it's black and red. Black is conscious. The personality is like your conscious. It's the self that you think of yourself as. It's your identity. I am me, is made up of these gates. So you'll read about these and you'll often really resonate with them. It may depend a little bit. Like you may not resonate, for example, with your Neptune, but most of them, you'll be like, I see a little bit of this somewhere in my life with the black. Now the red, your design, is underneath. Your design is the form. Your design is the vehicle. They say in human design, like the vehicle, the car. That you don't always necessarily notice. I don't know how often when you drive in your car, you're really paying that much attention to the structure of the car. But it sure as heck pivoting you down the road, right? And so our design is the unconscious side, and we may not relate to it as much. We may not notice it as much. We might start to as we get older, and I've certainly seen that, like, some of my design stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't get that when I was 20, but I'm getting that a lot more as I approach 40. Some of it I still don't really feel that much. And again, it kind of depends on the planets. We won't go into that, but what strategy and authority is designed to do is to really like work with the blend of the two, and to encompass your entire body graph, so that you're not just operating from this side, because when you use the mind, you might like really like lean on the personality side and be like, I am this, and this is how I act. But really, some of you is this, and this can start to pop up and mess with you if you're not living a really like balanced life. If you're not living in harmony, you're not living both sides. And the way you do that, strategy and authority are naturally designed to pull in both sides. So your strategy and your authority are determined based on your energy type, which is just, I'm not going to go into it, but like it's based on which centers you have and how they're connected. We may do that in another video. Let me know below if you're curious. So where does your energy type come from? But your strategy just goes directly with your energy type, and then your authority, there's a order. So some of these centers are particularly strong, and some of them are not as strong, and so it basically just goes down the order. So for example, if you have a defined solar plexus, you're always going to have emotional authority. That's just the strongest one. And so if this is defined, this is going to take over your body graph, and that's your authority. Sacral is the second strongest. So anybody who's a generator who doesn't have emotional has sacral, because all generator means is that you're, whether it's generator or manifesting generator, both of them, this is defined. Then we go to the spleen, and then we go on down. I can't always remember the whole list off the top of my head. So some of the authorities are more common than others. You know, emotional, really common. Sacral, pretty darn common. Then spleen, we go down the list. So that's how they're determined. So it all comes from the entirety of your body graph, and the strategy and the authority naturally like play into your body graph. This is just the last thing I'll say to clarify that like there is a connection mechanically, but we just don't have to think about that. We don't have to understand how it works. You just do it. Just practice it. Just try it. Experiment with it and see. And I think like one of the most useful things you can do in working with a human design reader, and I'm happy to work with you. You can see the links below for that. You can click the booking link to work with me. Like one of the things I really like is helping people to really understand their strategy and authority. Like what does it mean to respond? What does it mean to be invited? And what are all the other like pieces of that? And what are the nuances of the energy type and living from your strategy and authority? And what are some things that can like support you in it? And then we will go into the body graph sometimes when we're doing that. We might notice that there are certain things about your body graph where you can lean in to like make it easier to practice your strategy and authority. There are ways you can see when you're not practicing your strategy and authority. There are a lot of clues here. There's a lot of awareness practice. I love human design as an awareness practice. I can notice when I'm not practicing my strategy and authority the kinds of things that will come up based on this chart. But ultimately, it all leads back. So practice your strategy, practice your authority, try that, play with it. If you're really interested in the details, you can learn about it and see how it connects and manifests, but really it all comes back to that. So again, you can see the links to work with me below. I'd love it if you subscribe to my newsletter. That's how you know if new videos are coming out. I'm going to be doing a lot of human design content. I feel really called to it right now. So, blog posts, videos, all of it just goes right into the newsletter, and there's some additional content as well. It's where you can find out about new offerings, and I think I will be doing some new stuff. So if there's stuff that you're really interested in, leave a comment, but I'm hoping to do some like specific workshops around different things like anti-capitalist, neurodivergent approaches to human design in general, all that good stuff. So, definitely like get on the newsletter so you know when that's happening, because I won't always be able to let you know on YouTube in time. And then if you found this valuable, interesting, useful, my model in being an anti-capitalist business, one of the ways that I do this is that I offer a lot of stuff for free, and I would love for you to gloriously and gladly receive it for free. And then if you're called, if you're able to contribute, and if you found value from this, you get to decide what it was worth to you. And so you can check out the links below to Patreon, where you can support me at any level you'd like, and help to sustain and make this content available for others who can't afford it. And that's the way this works. So I'd love for you to do that, and just stay in touch in general, and let me know below if you have any other questions. And good luck with practicing your strategy and authority. Let me know in the comments how it goes.